It all depends on whether Pep Guardiola goes or if he stays. If he goes and they have a new coach in, he's trying to get used to the way of thinking, or maybe it might be his assistant, or somebody comes in and he's not Pep. That can make a difference, like when Ferguson left. And then there might be a new team. It might be Arteta's Arsenal. They might suddenly dominate for a few seasons. So I think it all just sort of depends on how long he stays, as the manager there, because he is the boss, isn't he? He's the one who's won all these titles. He's the one who's transformed Man City. I know they had money before and they did win titles before. He's the one who's taken them up several levels and kept them there. That's the thing. He's kept them there. They've not really, apart from that season Liverpool won it, it's not really deviated. It's been so impressive.
In this episode, Jack is back in the studio. How are you, Jack?
Good, thanks, Nicos. Good to be back. It's been a while, but
long time no see.
But we've got lots to talk about for this season, so it's great to be back and great to review this just past season. So let's crack on with it.
This episode will be mostly a review of what happened during the season. Go through some stats and. Of course, it was not a surprise that Man City won the league, and also they wrote their name in the books because they've done it 4 times in a row. It has not been done before. So when is Mr. Guardiola going to retire?
That's what they'll all be asking, won't they? That's what everybody's wondering. He said in an interview the other day that after they won, that he's closer to leaving than staying. Nobody knows what that means, but I think he will stay on and maybe try and get 5 in a row, maybe get another Champions League. He can stay as long as he likes, can't he? He's built a team. He's got that team ready. They can just keep winning, and they're like a machine. They can just keep winning. You'll be hoping that he does leave because obviously you're a Man United fan. Man City are winning everything at the moment, it seems. Not obviously the Champions League this season, things like that, but the league, 4 in a row, never been done before. Incredible.
And not only that, but this year, it looks like he's trying to evolve the team. He's changing the tactics all the time. So it's a matter of the rest to catch him up, basically.
Yeah, and he had players last season, the season before this one that's just finished, where they were playing most of the games, like Grealish was playing a big part of it. The season before he didn't, then he did, and then this season he's hardly played, and it's been Doku, it's been Bernardo Silva, it's been Foden. All these other players come in and seem to just perform.
Yeah, but this is okay. I don't know who is going to stop Man City, to be honest with you.
Can anybody stop them at the moment?
I thought Arsenal were going to do it this year, but they finished second.
Yeah.
We can see the first 10 teams on the table. So let's go through. I've wrote some, key points for us to discuss. Who do you think is the player of the year?
Yeah, it was a difficult one because there's been a few candidates, but I decided to go with one of the players who basically won the title. Well, he won the title on the final day with the goals. Is Foden, Phil Foden. I thought he's only a young player, so he could technically be the young player of the season. Still quite young. I think he's only 23. I think he is. He's already won 6 Premier League titles, I think, by the age of 23, which is quite incredible, really. He was good because, he's been at Man City for a long time. There was always questions about whether he was going to go out on loan, when he was going to get a chance in the team, when he was going to play. And Guardiola kept him back and he said, no, we're going to develop him. We're going to give him more minutes each season. And now he's one of the main men. He's one of the central players. Everything goes through him. He can turn on a sixpence. He's so agile and creative. He's got so much energy. You never see him I know he's young, but you never see him towards the end of the game where he's just struggling. He seems to cover everywhere, all across the pitch. And what he's added now is goals. He's added wonder goals to his game. He's not just setting up and linking the defence to the attack, but he's putting it in the top corner, it seems, almost every game. So he's my player of the season. Who did you go for?
I agree with you. To be honest with you, I agree. He especially when some other players he took it to another level from last year, because in previous years it was De Bruyne, it was Gundogan, but this year there was some injuries, some players out, and then he was like he was carrying. In some instances, he was carrying the team in his shoulders. So he's. Of course, they do have depth in a lot of depth. They do have, of course, the big discussion about all these charges.
Well, yeah, they've got those 115 charges, haven't they? And it doesn't relate to Phil Foden in any way, because they didn't buy him. Remember, they had him on. But a lot of the best players they have, they bought for a lot of money, of course. So that's linked to those charges. Funnily enough, one of their best players was through the academy. So it's quite interesting how that's happened.
I think because this has been dragged on for quite some time, and everybody is discussing it, whether this is a wanted team or this is just a corrupted club and is buying the title. So
there's that underlying thing. There's like a dark cloud hanging over everything until it's resolved, and we don't actually know when it is going to get resolved. It's still going to be a few more months away until we find a decision. So.
The good thing this year is that it went down to the wire. Liverpool was there at one stage, and Arsenal have been so consistent. And for Arsenal and Arteta, it's been a huge step forward this year. So maybe next year they will be stronger, opponents of Man City.
They need to be challenged. So we hope, even as a neutral, I hope Arsenal can come again, because it's 2 seasons in a row losing closely to Man City, even tighter this season to the final day. Hopefully they can come back from this, because it's a tough one to do it and keep losing out like Liverpool did all those times. Every time they finished second behind Guardiola's Man City. So I hope they can come back. I hope Liverpool. It'll be interesting to see how Liverpool get on next season with their new manager. You got Tottenham, second season as their new manager. I can't really see anybody challenging Man City at the moment, unless there's a real impressive summer of transfers from one team. I honestly can't see where that challenge is going to come. Arsenal are the favourites to challenge them, but I can't see anybody else below that coming up.
Okay, this is the review of the Premier League season, but we have the FA Cup. So, do you think they will do the double?
Well, with my Newcastle hat on, I hope, because then Newcastle can get the, I think it's the Conference League, UEFA Conference League, by finishing 7th. So, from a Newcastle point of view, yes, I hope Man City can. But obviously, you'll be hoping Man United do, and then you'll be able to get into the Conference League with that win, I believe. Or is it it might be Europa League. I'm not entirely sure, but you'll get into Europe if you win the FA Cup. I think they will do. I can't see Man United doing it, but then again, it's a one-off game at Wembley. Yeah. It's a big cup final, a local derby. Anything can happen. Anything can happen, can't it? So, and you were lucky to get there in the first place. So let's see how it goes. But I hope Man City, and I think Man City. But it's the FA Cup special. Anything can happen.
I know it's the FA Cup, but there's a huge difference in the sports this year. So only if the Hague decides to pack the bus and steal it, in my opinion,
we'll see what happens. Who did you have down for your young player of the season? Because it's a tricky one, that one. Because there's been a lot of good players this season.
My opinion, Kobbie Mainoo.
Kobbie Mainoo, yeah.
Yeah, he's been excellent. 18 years old. It looks like he's been playing for years, so mature, in an average season for Man United, and he's just a bright spark, in my opinion. That's why I think going forward, they need to think about how to structure the squad around these young players, Garnacho and Mainoo. But I think Garnacho, his goal against Everton was voted the best goal of the season. But another exceptional young player. But Mainu is really a pleasant surprise for me this year.
Yeah, he's come from nowhere. Did he play in that game that you went to, the Liverpool game?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and he impressed you then as well. You saw him in the flesh playing.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of energy, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And
A lot of maturity.
A lot of maturity. Yeah, he's calm on the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, and also in the other program that we do on the channel, Red Cafe, I mentioned it that it's quite different when you watch Premier League matches live than from the television. You see the whole picture, you see how fast the players move on the pitch, and the tactics is. So for any Cypriot fans out there that are watching this episode, I ask them to at least go and watch one Premier League match if they can.
Yeah, because it's another level, isn't it? The pace it's played at, the accuracy, the vision, the strength, the speed, everything's just on another level in the Premier League.
It's not just the speed, it's the speed of the action, reaction, the thought process.
Yeah, speed of thought.
It's unbelievable. It's not just, because, a few years back, maybe there was the speed, but not at this technical level. Now with with Guardiola and other European coaches in the Premier League, the technical aspect of the Premier League is at another level.
Yeah, it is. It's really moved up. I chose for my young player of the year, I chose Cole Palmer, because he's, again, in a bit like with Man United, in a team. I know they came strong towards the end of the season, Chelsea, but they were a struggling team. They weren't reaching the standards they needed to reach, and he's been unbelievable. He's scored so many goals. He's again been a bit like Foden. He's been creative. He's been that link player. But for Man City to let him go, I mean, it was quite an incredible decision for quite a low price, I think, comparatively compared to a lot of the signings made. He's just really excelled, and he's looking like one of the main players for the England squad, for the Euro. So he's really performed. It'll be interesting to see how Palmer does next season. Maybe will the defenders figure him out, or will he have more creativity in and around him, because Chelsea have had injuries, they've had some older players who are moving on and things like that. How will he work with any new players coming? Because Chelsea seem to have signed so many players. Will they all gel next season? But that's for next season. Cole Palmer last season was, for me, one of the top players. He was really close to Foden in terms of performance levels, and that says a lot when Man City was so many points ahead of Chelsea.
I have not considered Foden because right now it's in the experienced type of young player. I agree with you. There are quite a few young players that really excelled this year, and one is Palmer. He's very clever. I watched a couple of videos. Tactical videos, not just from these special videos where they analyze the tactical side of things. And you can find really some really interesting aspects of a player's tactical movement and the thought process, and his thought process is amazing. That's why I agree with you. Maybe next year the analysts and the defenders, they will try to suss him out, but he's so quick in his thinking and some of his movement, even without the ball, is amazing. Sometimes I understand when you're saying what happened and he moved from Man City, but sometimes it happens,
It's football.
Actually, in the Red Cafe episode, we're discussing about how Salah and De Bruyne were basically average players playing for Chelsea, and then all of a sudden, their teams, Liverpool and Man City, they were relying on them to win trophies. So it happens.
It's funny how these things happen. They happen a lot, don't they? The players move on and suddenly excel in other clubs. But he's been a really good example of, he could have just stayed at Man City, but no, he wanted to go and play, and he was It's been come through the academy like Foden did, and he, worked his way up, and then he thought, no, I want to play, I want to be the main man, and he's delivered. He's shown it. He's not shied away from that. So that shows a lot of his character as well.
And also sometimes players, they don't gel with the rest of the squad.
Yeah,
and
true.
Another thing that we have seen throughout the years is that a young player going to London, they get lost. the big city.
Yeah, big city, bright lights, and you can get lost. There's many distractions. These young players. There's so much more to do down there in London. So he's obviously got rid of all that noise. He's just focused on his game. I mean, his young players had one season. Let's judge him on a few seasons, but last season, very impressive. Very impressive. Yeah.
Manager of the season.
Manager of the season. Yeah, I don't want to keep giving it to Pep every season. So I thought Unai Emery's done an incredible job, to get Aston Villa up to fourth. I don't think they were unexpected to do. They weren't unexpected to do well. They were fancied, one of the fancied teams at the start of the season, a bit like Newcastle. An outside chance for getting into the top four for the Champions League. They were definitely in the conversation. They haven't come from nowhere. He's recruited well. He's got pedigree. He's won trophies. Throughout his career as a manager. But I think to get them to fourth is incredible, and to beat some of the teams below them. You look at the money spent by Chelsea, Man United, the impressive season from Newcastle last season to get to fourth. And Tottenham as well. They made a good start, Tottenham. But Villa to pip them, it's really top-notch. Well done to Unai Emery. And they didn't do too well in the last game because I think a lot of the players were on the beach. They got thrashed. I think it was 5-0 by Palace. But they're going to be in the Champions League next season. Yeah. What an experience for Villa fans. Unbelievable.
Exactly. After so many years, they are back in the Champions
League. Since the 80s, the last time they were in the European Cup back then. So incredible.
It was not even Champions League.
No, since it's been Champions League, Villa's been nowhere to be seen. They've even been in the lower division in the Champions League.
I fully agree with you. We discussed it off air as well. That the only surprise for me was the semi-final against Olympiacos. It looks like.
Yeah, we don't really know what happened there. They had a really bad first game, and then they just didn't. They had too much to do in the second leg. Losing at home. I watched that game as well, and I watched it. There was a few Greek people in the bar. They couldn't believe it. They were so surprised, and maybe that says more about Olympiacos. They just took the game to them. Maybe they have their own good coach, their own good setup. But Villa, that was really surprising. Maybe I read somewhere that the English teams really struggled in Europe this season, and some of the school of thought has been about they've been the intensity and the number of games they've played in the Premier League and just in general. All the managers are complaining about it, coming on the back of last season when they had the World Cup. Moving through, they had an extra long season. It felt like. Maybe the fatigue is just catching up with the English teams because of that intensity that they play at. I don't know. It's just a school of thought, but it seems to be with Villa. They had a real chance there to win that competition. They were the favourites going into those semi-finals, but not to be. But I think they don't mind. They're in the Champions League next season. The fans aren't going to complain too much.
Probably that's why they scrapped the FA Cup, the
replays. Yeah, the replays. Because the big clubs have been complaining about all these extra games, but no more games than before. And the Champions League, there's going to be more games, next season.
Exactly.
That's maybe a debate for another day, but it's just interesting to see how the Premier League's domestic campaign has affected the teams in Europe, and it's really downgraded English teams abroad with the 5th place, because now Germany and Italy have the 5th place for the Champions League, and English Premier League they're still the top 4. So.
Yeah, by the way, we need to wait and see the new format, in Europe. It looks like with that Super League discussion, the UEFA, decided that they need to do something so that the big clubs don't complain and they get more money. But this is, in my opinion, it looks like the top clubs, they need to have really huge squads in order to play all these matches, because right now top clubs, they play with the internationals about 65 matches a year. So what's going to happen? They're going to have to play 70 matches, 80 matches. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, and they're expanding the Club World Cup as well, aren't they, to make it into almost like a World Cup with extra teams and extra rounds and things like that.
And this year we have seen that apart from United, we have seen other clubs that they had a lot of injuries. So maybe it's because of the prolonged season, we're coming from the World Cup in January. This is, of course, I expected that having the World Cup in January, it upsets the whole, how a team works and the individual players, because they work on different microcycles every year and macrocycles, regarding their physical condition. And then they had to go and play in Qatar the World Cup in the middle of the season. And then that was
even on a basic level, nutrition, tactics,
exactly.
Schedule,
exactly,
everything, and it just throws you off a little bit. And there were some players who came back from, or even players who didn't even go to the World Cup. They came after that World Cup break. They came back, different players. They lost form, and maybe they were tired going into this season. And also actually another reason why the Premier League teams may have failed more in Europe as well is because they do these big global tours now that they go around the world for friendly matches and things like that straight after the season finishes. Like Newcastle and Tottenham are going to be playing in Australia this week, straight after the season. So how is that good? Is there ever a break? And then they go into the Euros. It will be interesting to see. But yeah, in the Premier League, it's been high intensity. It's been close games. There's been lots of goals scored, and that affected them in Europe. And let's just see how it happens next season. Let's see how Aston Villa. We were talking about Aston Villa. Let's see how they cope with playing Champions League, all those extra games as well. With the squad that they have and the injuries they had this season, how will it affect them? Will it be like it did with Newcastle, and it affected Newcastle's season with injuries, with poor finish for the season, in terms of the league position? So that's going to be interesting as well.
Yeah, they need to strengthen, definitely. You cannot play in Europe and Premier League, and you need to have the coaches. They need to have the players and the alternatives in different positions in order to use them. The rotation will how you manage the squad. A lot of different parameters to get through the season. Okay, let's. In your opinion, what was the best moment of the season? For you?
Moment. Yeah, because I was thinking about this best moment because it's an interesting category. But if it's on a goal, or a work of art, a piece of beauty, I think it has to be that Garnacho goal. I mean, that was incredible. That Garnacho overhead kick against Everton. That was the best individual moment. I was trying to think of games. There was a moment where. You won't like this, but when Man United lost to Arsenal at the Emirates and it was 1-1 going into the 95th minute, and then Declan Rice scored and then Jesus scored again, made it 3-1. That felt like a big moment for Arsenal because the season before I couldn't see them doing that as much, and that they showed a bit more resilience, and they definitely had that extra know-how to really challenge Man City. Ultimately fell short, but that felt like a big moment. Also, Everton, when they beat Liverpool, effectively ending Liverpool's chances of the title, that felt like a big moment. So there's been a few standout moments, high-scoring games. I quite liked it as a Newcastle fan when it was 8-0. They beat Sheffield United away at Sheffield United. That was a nice moment, and there were some big victories for Newcastle, especially at home. So there's been lots of, and also that Chelsea Man United game where Palmer scored. There was 2 late goals, and
you mentioned 2 matches, Man United matches, but
they're memorable.
But Man United, it looks like this year it was a habit of them for the opponents to score late goals.
Yeah, it's usually. Famously, Man United under Ferguson was always Man United scoring.
This year it was exactly the opposite.
Completely on its head. Is there anything else that stood out for you, memories or moments?
Mine, it was not, a match or a moment in the match. It was when the club announced that he was going to retire.
Yes. Yes.
It was unexpected, to be honest with you. And I didn't expect that even if he decided that he was going to retire, that he was going to announce it that early before the end of the season. It looks for me that it affected, it put more pressure on the squad because they wanted to win a major trophy, as a send-off for Klopp, and it turned exactly the opposite way, because it looks like they were collapsing every week.
Yeah, they did well even after he announced it so early on, to keep up with Arsenal and Man City. They were, they for quite a long time they kept up that. They dealt with the pressure. They had injuries, but they dealt with it. They had the young players. They won the League Cup, didn't they?
Yeah,
with the young
Jack,
team.
but
they did well for a long period.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we know that it's the business end, what is called as the business end
of course,
of the season.
Last few games, yeah, where it matters.
Okay, because I mean, the Hack says that when the 10 of the year, after the 10 of the year, that we were undefeated for so many matches. So what? You finish, I mean, 8th.
Yeah, it's where it matters. And ultimately, Liverpool fell short. They were 9 points behind Man City in the end. It's just that's quite a gap. But they did well up to a point. It was really strange. I really don't know why Klopp announced it so early on. He must have really wanted to get it off his chest. I can't see the reasoning.
Probably, and also for the club, because it's not only him that is leaving. The club to this transitional period to get ready for next season.
Yeah, but usually when this happens, it happens privately, or they discuss it. So to come out and reveal that, very unusual. And he must have had the club's blessing to do that, because unless he didn't tell the club, we don't really know for sure.
And I remember, and I mentioned it here at the HPO, that when Alex Ferguson announced before his final retirement, some years before, when he announced that he was going to retire and then he changed his mind, that it's upsetting for the players, for the staff, for everybody around the club.
Yeah, because a lot of players joined because of Klopp, not just because it's Liverpool. Obviously, that's attractive, but because of his vision. He would have sold them the dream. He would have said, "This is my style of play. This is how we do things." And then all of a sudden, he's gone. So and he's been there for so long. He feels like he is the club. He is so important.
And the really thing, even though I don't like Liverpool, as you know, we're going to miss his big character.
Yeah, for sure. He's been a real personality, hasn't he?
Yeah, and this year, for me, a breath of fresh air was Postecoglou. And I was hooked at watching his press conferences.
Oh, so entertaining.
And now we are losing Klopp.
We know the solution for Liverpool. The solution is to bring in a Dutch manager. Now, how did that work out? That's the thing. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
So there's other things to discuss as well, isn't there? Maybe underachieving clubs.
Who do you think were the big underachievers?
Yeah. Look, naturally, you look at the table, you see Man United in 8th. That is really badly underachieving, and I just can't look away from that. Man United have never finished 8th in the Premier League era, and you haven't finished 8th since I think it was 1989.
Yeah,
something like this.
Since Ferguson retired, we broke all the Premier League records.
Yeah, you've broken every individual record for the negative. But I mean, this is really, really bad. And I'm looking at the goals scored: 57 goals scored. Man City 96. I mean, that you don't have. Man United over the years have always had. Traditionally, a striker who scores goals, somebody who scores 20 goals. They've had
actually they finish on a negative goal difference.
I mean, that's a new thing, isn't it? Man United negative goal difference is quite incredible, really. It really is. You've got some good players. Yeah, we know you're going to build the team around them next season, the season after. I don't know if Ten Hag's the right person to help you with that, but look, that was, for me, that's such an underachievement. The money you've spent I mean, Sir Jim coming in, he's not going to like looking at that table, is he? He's going to want to improve things and improve the stadium, improve the club generally. But I think just overall, as this global brand, as this famous club, you know, won so many titles. Ferguson obviously is long gone, and it's been a struggle. But since then, it's just been up and down, but mostly down. And this is real. 8th is just, and if you lose badly in the FA Cup final as well, that's a terrible season to be 8th and then lose the final. So for me, Man United, who would you say underperforming?
Before I say who's underperforming, do you since you're on Man United, do you think the Hag will stay or?
It's a difficult one. I can't see who would.
Or do you think the board will decide after the FA Cup?
Yes.
Do you think so?
It all depends on that game. And if you'd have lost to Coventry in the semi-final, I think he would have been gone already, or he would have been gone after the end of the season. But if you win the FA Cup final, it might be difficult. They might have I don't know what their thought process is, but I'm thinking they probably want him to go. They probably want to bring in Thomas Tuchel, someone like that, someone who's actively looking to come back to the Premier League. He could be somebody who could come in, but
yeah, but look,
there's not many options.
Look at it. He was a disaster at Bayern Munich.
And he did win the Champions League with Chelsea, unbelievable. But he struggled in the next season, and yes, he didn't do too good with Bayern Munich.
He went to Germany, a powerhouse, Bayern Munich. Every season they win the league, and okay.
And now they finished 3rd.
Okay. You cannot blame Kane because they haven't won the
curse of Harry Kane. Yeah. Well, that is definitely one thing. It seems to be like a curse, but no, I don't think they can. How can they justify keeping him in the job? I mean.
Yeah, but he.
He's a nice man. Is he up to the job?
But Tuchel is the only one out there. Okay.
There's not many other people. No.
Because we're talking about Man United. They tried everything. They tried Van Gaal. They tried, David Moyes. They tried the special one.
Yeah, and it wasn't so special. Although he did win something. But it's going to be difficult. It just seems like anybody who comes in, it's just underachieving every single time. Is it the club? Is it the foundations? Is it actually the manager? Is he the problem?
No, no, it's more than that. It's definitely
it's a deeper thing. What do you think? Do you think he's going to stay, or do you think he will go?
I think they will give him another chance.
One more season, maybe.
One more season. One more season. It's a new structure behind the scenes. It looks like football people join the club, and they will join hopefully. But they will give him another season, and also they will. Up to now, it looks like he was making the major decisions regarding recruitment of players.
Some of the players he signed, Anthony. I mean, what was that all about? What a waste of money. I mean, some of the players he's brought in are just not performed, have they, at all, really? No,
yeah, and also one thing that it looks like it's been working is the academy, because you have seen Guambala, Garnacho, Meinu, Forson, some other young players coming through the ranks. They won the U18, they won the lot this year. Our Mr. Phil Jones is the coach.
Phil Jones, he's a blast from the past. So that's showing then there's almost like an Ajax academy style thing coming through at Man United, where they've got the players coming into the first team. That's what he had at his old club. So maybe there's a role for him there, but I'm not sure as the first team coach. Maybe he could help bring the youth through, but I'm not sure.
You haven't been convinced.
I'm not convinced.
Okay,
I don't think anyone is convinced.
Okay.
I don't think anyone is convinced, to be honest.
So my underachievers, because of the money spent, is Chelsea. Okay, I know they finished 6th, but they spent over $1 billion in player recruitment.
Just so much money.
Okay, someone can say until all these players, when you bring in so many players, they need time to adjust, to gel, and. But with Pochettino, I expected that they were going to be they have not been consistent enough. Okay, and they finished sixth because until recently they were eighth, ninth. They were you couldn't see them finishing sixth, but because of the collapse of Man United and Newcastle, they were not consistent enough.
No,
they managed to
weren't,
finish sixth. Okay. But at the end of the day, I expected them to be competing for Champions League, at least for Champions League places.
At least with the players they brought in, it
Yes.
was like a fantasy league. He was just getting his checkbook out,
Yeah.
Todd Bowley, and just buying anybody and everybody. 100 million for Caicedo, 100 million
Yeah.
nod for Enzo Fernandez. All these players, it was like a blank checkbook.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
But from what I was reading, it's not a simple structure at Chelsea. So the coach needs to refer to somebody, and then it goes up higher. It's not, and the owner's involvement. It looks like he had a big say in some of the decisions.
It's interesting to see. I don't know what their vision actually is, but it's. I think that there's some positives going into next season. How they finish the season, they would definitely be my underachievers if they didn't have that really strong finish to the season. I understand your point completely. They have been underachievers, but to be sixth is underachieving. But they could have been a whole lot worse, and they've really come on strong those last few weeks and months. Actually, they're like if the season started, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, they'd be right in the top 4. The way they're playing. But let's see how they go on next season. But they've underachieved too. Not as much as Man United, in my opinion, but they have underachieved for sure. Yeah, they've done well to get back to 6.
Regarding the relegation, it's not a surprise for me, the teams that they were relegated.
The 3 who came up have gone straight back down again. It's a shame because you like to see new clubs try and get a foothold and stay up for a couple of seasons, like we've seen in recent seasons, like Forest and teams like that coming up and staying in the league and doing well. And Bournemouth did, and stayed up. But there's just such a big gap now. You look at the points that the teams in the bottom 3 got. Sheffield United, I mean, they conceded over 100 goals. I mean, this just never happened before. It's just insane how bad they were. Unfortunately, they're just so far off the mark. But you could see it coming, And Burnley, they had all those points. They had Vincent Kompany, and he looked like the next top coach. How they brought them up from the Championship, scoring goals, playing like Man City in the Championship, free flowing, attacking football. They come up and struggle, and then you've got Luton. Actually, I thought Luton have almost overachieved. They got more points than the other 2 below them, and then they weren't too far off. I know Forest had the points deduction, so did Everton. It made it more interesting, but until the last 10 or so games, Luton were really in with a shout of staying up, and they just fell off and they lost a few games. But they've been really impressive for me, considering their budget and a lot of the players who come up with them through the leagues. A lot of their team is a Championship team, apart from Ross Barkley and a few star players like that. They've really impressed me, but they still didn't have enough.
And Nottingham Forest, actually Everton. This was really a farce. I mean. They deducted them so many points, and then they say, no, we change our mind, and they, come on.
It was, with the asterisks, it's just not very professional. It doesn't look good on the league with all these points changes. Oh, we'll add some more, then we'll take some more away and add it back again. It's just a farce, like you said. It's just a farce, and I hope it doesn't.
It's like the Man City churches. I mean, they need to make a decision at the end of the day. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah, maybe it's because there's so many of them to go through, but it's just taken too long. Everyone's thinking, when are they going to make a decision? Why has it happened to Everton? Why has it happened to Forest, but not Man City?
Exactly. So, and for Forest, if they don't make the next step next season, I think if they continue like this, because Marinakis, he invested a lot of money.
Made a lot of signings.
Made a lot of signings. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how he manages to have one club in Spain, Olympiacos in Greece, and Nottingham Forest.
How the guy sleeps.
I mean, some owners they cannot manage to have just one club. It's a full-time job. the management of a club. He has 3 clubs in 3 different countries, and he spent a lot of money when they came up, and you are wondering, I mean, who's making the decisions, and then of course I think when he changed the head coach.
They got Nuno in.
Even though, and I guess, even though it was a good decision in the sense that he brought in a coach who was experienced in the Premier League, so that they managed to stay up. The previous coach was popular, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision for your team to stay up in the Premier League, because we know that going down, you lose about 100 million income just by going to the Championship. Okay, the teams that came up so far, I mean, Ipswich and Leicester, do you think they will struggle next year, or is it too early to say?
Might be too early to say. You'd like to think Leicester would have a better chance, because they obviously been up recently, and they've still got the same ownership. They've got a lot of the players still from when they were in the Premier League last time as well, and they were impressive. They sort of fell away a little bit towards the end, but they would have been on for over 100 points, but they just sort of let that slip towards the end. But I think they've got the best chance out of the 2 so far. But it's nice to see Ipswich back, because they haven't been in the top flight for a long time, and it's good to see different teams coming up, because we're looking at the playoffs for the Championship. All the teams have been in the Premier League in the last couple of years. It's nice to see a newcomer back, somebody who's a famous team, that's been up there in the past. So I hope they stay up. I just can't see how they're going to stay up. They got Ed Sheeran involved in the club. I know they got a bit of a star sprinkling on them, but I don't know if they've got the budget, and I don't know if they've got the players. They need a complete squad overhaul. Their Championship squad.
Yeah, I think firstly what they need to do is they need to keep the head coach.
And you know a bit about him because of his Man United connections as well.
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk the last few days that he might be #1 candidate for Brighton. And also some people say that he's been approached by Man United to go back and be part of the first team. I don't think he would do that.
He wouldn't do that unless it was for the #1 job. That would be silly, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
With what he's achieved. So what do you think? I mean, what do you know about... How closely do you follow the Championship clubs? Because obviously the focus on the Premier League, Ipswich and Leicester.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And we need to wait and see the playoff, who is going to be the 3rd team coming up. But the transition from the Championship, we know that the gap between the Championship and the Premiership is getting bigger and bigger every year. So you need to be really efficient in your player recruitment, and then you need to try to manage to stay up the first season when you come up from the Championship. If you manage to do that and then steady the ship, then there is hope. If you're a small club,
you're just that first season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just staying up. Be the surprise package.
Yeah.
Maybe think a little bit outside the box if you can. It's easy for us to sit here and say this, but there's teams who have done it. They've come up and they've stabilised, and they've been the surprise package, or teams haven't quite worked them out until the second season. That's the most difficult one. But staying up, getting up, and staying up is so important, isn't it?
What we have seen is like Bradford, which is a successful project, and some other clubs like this. They you see more, taller players, more athletic players to manage. Football is changing. It's not just in the Premier League. You see it everywhere. It's not just the technical side of the players. You see that the players are they are taller, they are more athletic, powerful players. So, but if you see some of these smaller clubs in the Premier League, they do combine all these characteristics. That's why they stay up.
Yeah, and with Brentford, they had Thomas Frank. They had a real identity. They still do, but they've fallen away a little bit.
Yeah,
not as good as they were, but maybe they're more predictable. Maybe people have figured them out. They lost Ivan Toney. All these different factors.
I know, but they have a different philosophy.
Yeah, they have a defined.
Yes, and also it's the same owner with the Michelin owner and Brentford owner. He's the same guy. And they use, the analysis they do. They have a lot of data analysts and recruitment analysts, and they have their own softwares developed. It looks like that's why this year it was like a transitional period, because you can use a model, for 3 years, and then you need to modify or adjust or. In order to the project to go forward. Okay, it looks like this year they lost the plot somehow, but
they just need to find that again, don't they? They need to recruit well, because they're probably going to lose the star striker Tony, and they just need to go again and try and find a new way to be that surprise team, or not to be figured out, or get those points, because they're always strong at home, these teams, but they need to pick up more points away. That's another one to keep an eye out on. There's lots of stories, lots of subplots for next season. But last season, when I look at the table, the one thing that strikes me is the massive gap, the big disparity between the teams at the top, and not even just the bottom, but the middle. It's almost into a thirds now. Top third, middle third, bottom third, and it's a complete gap. It's an obvious big gap. So I really hope that it can be closed, because historically, I know there's always been the big teams. There's always been runaway leaders and things like that, and people who, teams who won it by a good few points. It's not always been on the final day, as we know. But I think the gap is just getting bigger, not just between the Premier League and the Championship, but also within the Premier League. And I'd like to see more competition. I know that's what they're trying to bring in with the with the profit and sustainability rules, and they're changing that, they're amending that again and this and that. But unfortunately, some of the clubs like Man City and Chelsea and even Man United, they recruited and spent a lot of money, spent heavily before these rules came in. So they've already got a head start on these other clubs like Newcastle and even Villa, because they're limited with their spending. All these clubs trying to catch up, they can't, because the hands are tied, but the other clubs have their hands tied, but they've already spent the money, so it's okay, and they can sell these top players for big money to make more money again. So I just hope it's more competitive. I know it's been Man City and Arsenal to the final game, but I just hope there's more competition. There's clearer gaps between each spot, and I just want it to be like the top 8. There's quite a lot of difference between the top 8 and then the next 8. So I really hope for next season we get that more competitiveness. I'm sure you agree with that as well.
I fully agree with you, because it was we had the Liverpool era, and then we had the Man United era, and if one, at least when Ferguson was there, Arsenal were winning some of the championships, but if Man City continue winning the league, it will become boring, really.
Yeah, and it's already starting to become boring, isn't it? It's almost, if they win 5, 6, 7 in a row.
Because you expect that like they have a head start at the beginning of the season, and then even though they might struggle somewhere in the middle of the season because they play Champions League and they're trying to win that as well, like they did last year with the treble. You're expecting then that they're going to win it again. I mean,
I think it all depends on whether Pep Guardiola goes or if he stays. If he if he goes and they have a new coach in, he's trying to get used to the way of thinking, or maybe it might be his assistant, or somebody comes in and he's not Pep. That can make a difference, like when Ferguson left. And then there might be a new team. It might be Arteta's Arsenal. They might suddenly dominate for a few seasons. So I think it all just sort of depends on how long he stays, as the manager there, because he is he's the boss, isn't he? He's the one who's won all these titles. He's the one who's transformed Man City. I know they had money before and they did win titles before. He's the one who's taken them up several levels and kept them there. That's the thing. He's kept them there. They've not really, apart from that season Liverpool won it, it's not really deviated. It's been so impressive. So once he leaves, then it might become more competitive again, or there might be a new Liverpool, Man United, on the block. Let's see.
Basically, we started this episode wishing Pep Guardiola to, retire. And let's finish it at that.
And we come full circle and agreed that I think to make it more competitive, he needs to
retire.
He needs to retire. Yeah, unless he wants
from
to
the Premier League.
Yeah,
he can go on. I don't know, somewhere else.
International, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Win the World Cup every time. Yeah. But anyway,
so we'll leave it at that, and then we will come back when the season starts, and we're going to have a weekly episodes discussing the week's results and developments of the off and off the pitch, and hopefully next year it will be much more entertaining than this year.
Bring on next season.